just setting up. Cool. So I think we're live. Wicked. Okay. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're here with the last panel of the day, and we're looking at what comes next for the electronic dance music industry, which is kind of important for an industry that has been put a kind of on hiatus in a way of nightlife. But I'm sure these lovely experienced panelists are going to shed some light for us at the end of the tunnel here. We're going to be raising money today for Women in Music, BLMUK, Mind and Help Musicians. The links in the description for this video. So please, if you can, it'd be great if you could support those charities. They're doing a lot for the industry and just generally as well. They're doing really good things. I'm here today with Silvia, Courtney, Fiona and Grahame, all very experienced and talented people in the industry. And we're going to learn a lot from, I think, on this one. So guys and girls, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, it'd be cool to hear who you are and what you're involved in. Silvia, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm Silvia Montello, based in London, and I've been working in the music industry for about 30 years now, doing a variety of different jobs, majors, indies, startups, music tech, and I've been involved in the electronic music scene for quite a while as a DJ and promoter back in the day. Also do some productions and songwriting, and I'm just launching a new electronic dance label called Remarkable to help support female identifying producers and songwriters, as well as people of colour and people from LGBTQ communities who we feel are still underrepresented in the electronic dance music sector. Amazing.
Fiona, you've smiled now, so maybe you can next.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Fiona, Aber. I am currently the operations manager for Printworks London, working in the music and culture team. So I can effectively be found running around the big old space, probably trying to find pieces of head or just running with pieces of head around the space. But yeah, I've been working in events for about 7 years now. Kind of different areas, from sort of like project management and building of custom stage sets for touring artists to managing venues and kind of working in sort of like brand partnership kind of areas. So yeah, that's kind of where I lie.
Amazing. Grahame?
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I was trying to share it as well.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, I'm Grahame Farmer. I run a website called Data Transmission. I've worked in music for probably 20 years. I worked for a nightclub called Turn Mills Nightclub before that. And I run a lot of other channels that I own, techno, disco, drum and bass. I have a radio station called Data Transmission Radio, and also coach artists. And in fact, from tomorrow, I'm a producer as well, because I'm releasing a record tomorrow. So.
Oh, yes. Amazing. Courtney?
So I'm Courtney Faulkner. I've only actually worked in the industry for 2 years. So I'm definitely the baby of this panel. But yeah, we deal with, I work at the booking and management assistant as Prime Culture. So we deal with like the management for Michael Bibby, Dennis Cruz, Pausa, all those kind of guys.
Amazing. Yeah, you might have only worked in for 2 years, but you've done a lot in that time, Courtney. It's been a really, really cool rise. Actually, yeah, I mean, brought that up. Let's speak to that, because, you know, I met you 2 years ago. You just started working with Solid Grooves in Ibiza, and you've had 2 seasons there, which has been, seemed like you've had a really successful time there. I guess in a way, do you think Ibiza sort of facilitated or given you a space to develop in a way that, say, maybe the UK couldn't have facilitated?
Yes, yeah, 100%. Like going to Ibiza literally like changed my career life. like probably back from like 2012. Like I've literally always wanted to get into the industry, but over like the 6 years up to when I kind of done the season, I just found it like so hard. Like I was going on loads of job sites and looking up loads of courses and contacting loads of people, and yeah, it was just so hard. I started to like network a lot more, just ended up going to like events on my own and stuff. So that obviously helped, and I met a lot of good people that way. But I just thought I've always wanted to do like a season in Ibiza, and it just seemed like a really good platform to do it out there. You just like, I think workers, they like get to know like the good information. You can literally be like walking down the street or sitting in a restaurant, and you could be sitting next to like a really big DJ or like a really important person in the industry, so you just get to easily connect to them, which you don't really seem to get like in the UK. Like when you go to like an event or quite a big event or whatever, you're not really mixing with those people like unless you like really know them. So yeah, and everyone's just like so like-minded out there. But yeah, you just have to put in the work. Obviously, if you do go out there, it's not guaranteed obviously for everyone. But yeah.
Hard work can pay off there, can't it? And you've shown that in bounds. But I mean, you're incredibly hardworking though. Like I think that needs to be stressed. Yeah, I mean, a little uncertain future, but it seems like there's a lot of things sort of opening up there again, and hopefully we can see a return for people to travel there, as long as things are safe. I guess, yeah, you open up the spirit of like collaboration there and connecting with people. Like Fiona at Printworks, it's been like a massive success. You've collaborated with a lot of big partnerships often, and you've worked with a lot of brands as well. Do you think that is the key for a lot of growth in bigger venues or even smaller venues, is to have these partnerships?
I think we're quite lucky in the sense that we do have the relationships with a lot of different brands, both from a perhaps like a label point of view, but then also like on a consumer kind of brand point of view also. And I think from a label point of view, you've got to think about it. Electronic music is it's such a broad like term, right? There are so many different kind of areas and subgenres within that. And so I think we've been quite fortunate that we've been able to work with many different labels who kind of represent all of these different subgenres in order to then really speak to the overall community without it feeling like we're just this type of genre. You can come to Printworks 1 week and it be drum and bass, and then come the next week and it be like deep techno. It's I feel like it's definitely a home for people who were just lovers of that space, regardless of what kind of area you're kind of coming from. And so for that case, I think that has definitely been something that we've been really good at, and we've been very lucky to be able to do. And then also looking at from a, I guess, consumer brand kind of point of view, if you are a sponsor, you want to meet your consumers or your audience wherever they're at, right? So if you know that they do frequent, whether it's a particular festival or a venue or a particular event, then that's kind of where you want to be. And I think again, we've managed to work with our sponsors in a way that has just allowed us to do that in a way that just doesn't feel too forced. There's just a natural sort of like brand affinity between the different partnerships. So I definitely feel like that has been helpful for us to kind of increase the brand affinity that we have as as a venue and as a promoter, but also that other brands have, whether they are consumer or a label, have with their audience also.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, it's kind of a really good point. Like, just don't pigeonhole yourself, and it's you've taken that to the next level at Printworks. It's everyone knows where Printworks is and what it does. So yeah, it's really cool, really wicked success there. Yeah, Grahame, I mean, you're a very entrepreneurial person here. You have so many different side brands, and data transmission is huge. And you create a lot of content, especially online content. How important is it for big brands to engage in this sort of activity? Do you think it's essential? I know it's been definitely more highlighted recently, but do you think it's kind of the onward trend's going to progress, and that's where it needs to go?
Definitely. We create probably, I don't know, 40, 50 pieces of content a day.
Wow.
Across all channels. Like probably more. Like on a good day, we can get up to 60 or 70. You know, and I think it's really important. The more content you put out there, the more reach you get, and across all the, you know, across not just one platform but all chat platforms. So yes for brands, yes for DJs, yes for labels, yes for promoters. You know, this is how you reach your audience now, but also make sure you're looking after that audience at the same time.
Yeah, very cool. It's nice to hear that's continuing, and it's stuff I guess people can do themselves, as well as looking to bigger companies looking for people who specialize in this.
Just make it yourself. Like, definitely make it yourself. Definitely don't worry if it looks shit at the start. Just keep trying and get better and better. But just start doing stuff as well. Like, so many people don't make content because they just think they want it to make it look amazing, and it's never going to be when they start. It's just going to, unless you hire someone and pay, you know, thousands. Right. But
so you're sort of saying it's good to inject your personality into that and your unique style. Yeah,
100%. I do it like all the time. Like, I start something and I know it's going to be rubbish, and I just let it roll and see how. And then the next day I'm going to, right, how can I make that 1% better? And the next day I'm going to make it 1% better than that, and the next day, and then just, you know, 1% every angle and every day, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely guilty of that. Trying to, I think, it doesn't look professionally or sheen enough, and I guess it touches on what Fiona say. You know, you don't things to seem too forced. I guess you lose a lot of that personality in it. I mean, obviously there's been a massive change to nightlife. These big capacity events have been put on hold. Silvia, you've worked in like a lot of different aspects of this industry. In times where there has been more crisis, could be even like within a company, do you think a lot of these companies can adapt and overcome and have already started to progress since this hiatus in electronic music?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just that companies can, they're going to have to. And it has been like that since I can remember in the industry as well. There have always been changes, whether it's particular sectors that were the mainstay of the industry. I mean, even if you look at the change from physical to digital, for example, and that schism really had a massive impact on companies where their entire business model was suddenly very different, and they had to learn how to actually cope with that. So companies now are, I think, used to the sort of adapt or die mentality, where you're thrown into an emergency situation where something has disappeared overnight, and what you have to do is use some initiative, experimentation, not panic, and look at actually how you can try and pivot parts of your business so that you are still reaching your audience, you are still able to connect with a fan base, connect with the people that were consuming your music or your club night or whatever it might be. So, change is something that I think the music industry and people working within it have been used to. The clever ones have kind of come through that and continue to survive and grow. Other ones that really get stuck are sadly going to fall by the wayside. Obviously, with COVID and the changes to electronic music now, some of the businesses may go under through no fault of their own, just because of the lack of revenue and lack of support potentially from the government or from various sectors, where you actually just physically need some more money to keep your business going until things can start recovering again. So that's going to be an unfortunate byproduct, I think, of the changes that we're seeing at the moment. But in terms of labels and in terms of a lot of artistic collectives, they're finding other ways in which to try and sort of push through until we get to whatever the next version of our industry is going to look like over the next months and years.
Yeah, great point. I'm like trying to maintain that connection in some way of your business. That's with the people who are consuming it. Very cool. I guess this leads on, like, maybe ask, you probably can all answer this in some way, but Fiona, as you're working with Printworks, what do you sort of foresee for that venue, and is it going to be able to adapt going forward? If you can't talk about certain things, obviously we don't have to. But yeah, what's the sort of, do you have an idea? Do you think we can go forward with high capacity stuff?
I feel like, if you think about the energy you feel when you go to a rave, it's the idea of doing that socially distanced. I almost feel like that doesn't even make sense. So from our point of view, I mean, we're all kind of just, everything's kind of up in the air at the moment because nobody really knows how to kind of proceed. And I think more than anything, you know, in some cases for some venues it might be that they have to cut their capacity. So if, you know, if you're a 3,000 capacity, maybe you can only do 1,500 people, but then it becomes a question of how does that impact the P&L, and can we survive off of that smaller capacity? So there are a lot of questions that I think venues are having to ask themselves in terms of whether they can actually run in a socially distanced way and it still make business sense for them. Because ultimately, yes, we love what we do, and yes, we love being in this industry, and we love promoting the culture, but you know, everyone is ultimately running a business, right? So if it doesn't make business sense to some degree, then there's a lot of things that you then have to consider. So yeah, I think there are a lot of kind of decisions that need to be made, but I think a socially distanced solution just removes everything that we love about raving, everything that we love about that space. So I have many questions in terms of how we make that work, really. So unfortunately I don't have the answers for you. I'm just as curious as anybody else really at this point.
It's great to hear it from you, though. You know, your thoughts on it anyway, because I'm sure people are interested about how big venues feel about this. I guess, like, Courtney, how are you responding as working at an agency, and how are artists responding to this?
What was in the capacities and stuff? Or?
Yeah, like, you know, with bookings and fees changing, or artists don't mind changing fees. Are they playing in different spaces than they used to? Are they still enjoying it? That, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, all the spaces that we're kind of working with at the moment are all like open air spaces. We've all got kind of restrictions in place. But yeah, already like for next year, like we're seeing obviously like some festivals and events and stuff, they're having to lower the capacities. So yeah, that the fees are having to drop. We're already seeing that for next year. So
right.
Yeah.
Do you think like people can charge a bit more? Because I guess in terms of like parties and spaces, because I mean, me personally, I want to return to a party. I really, really miss it. I wouldn't mind paying more, even though you know, it's lower capacity. Because you've got to, like Fiona said, these are businesses. They've got a bottom line. If I'm using that space and there's less people there, like, I appreciate I'd have to pay more.
I guess the customers would, but I guess everyone has to think about, obviously, the artists, the venue, everyone's losing out in some way by lowering their capacity. So I think everyone just has to be fair, really.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I guess I'm not thinking like, I guess I could only spend that money so many times. Like, rather than two, I'd have to just pick one gig. So yeah, there's loss somewhere, isn't there? But yeah, I guess it is up in the air. So hopefully things will improve. You know, things are moving abroad, which is pretty cool, and hopefully that's gonna be a foresight for the UK to start reopening things.
Everything's so fast. Like, everything can change so fast. Like, a country, obviously, like with Spain, they can just shut off their like do their quarantine or whatever straight away within like a day. So we just don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it's making those smart business decisions to make sure people don't lose out. Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
I also think that it would be interesting to kind of see how this moment impacts audience behaviors, because like you were just saying that you wouldn't mind paying more to, you know, go to a night out if, you know, if there were less people there. But you know, if you think about the state of affairs, a lot of people have been made redundant. A lot of people just don't really know, you know, what their kind of future are in terms of like their financial situations, right? So I think that is also a bit of a worry, because we can all go gung-ho and be like, right, yeah, cool, we're going to put on this big old show, and the audience might not interact in the same way as in which they would have done prior to COVID. So I think there are also a lot of uncertainties around what just the audience engagement will be when tickets do, you know, finally start going on sale, when shows do start happening, because everyone's situation has changed. So I think that's also quite a big sort of question mark over a lot of business decisions that I imagine a lot of people are making.
I think
Yeah.
from a consumer point of view as well. I mean, I'm seeing nights being advertised at the moment for October, November time that look really good. But as a punter, I'm sitting thinking, well, do I want to book the tickets? Do I know that it's actually going to go ahead? If it doesn't go ahead, do I get the refund, or am I going to be asked to kind of roll those over till the next year, which has obviously happened with a few of the events that got cancelled earlier this year. And I'm fine to do that up to a certain point. But I think there is a nervousness now with some people thinking, well, I'd love to go, but I don't know whether it's actually going to happen. So I'm just going to bide my time a little bit nearer to the event. And obviously that's not helpful if you're running the night and running the venue, because you want to be pre-selling tickets as early as possible and actually seeing what your P&Ls are going to look like. So there's a lot of chicken and egg, I think, still at the moment, because there's so much uncertainty about how things will pan out for the rest of this year and into next year.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. I'm learning a lot from this conversation already. I guess following from that, like Grahame, you offer a lot of coaching. How's people's objectives and goals changed that you're coaching?
Not that much. Like, we focus on making sure the music's right first. We make sure that streaming is by far the most important thing for me generally. So making sure that the music, when it's coming out, we're pushing the streaming numbers as much as possible. Yes, trying to obviously build records, and building records with video and quality content is harder, but you can still get that from a live stream, I guess. But not essential for making sure that streams, happen, and just making sure that people, they know, like our guys know more about ads and more about making sure that they're using their money properly, and investing them right to get the most out of it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay, that's an interesting point. Like Silvia, you're quite involved with the live streaming. I mean, it's kind of been like, up until recently, I guess things have started opening outside, but it's been really the only viable alternative to experience some sort of electronic music. I know you mentioned to me in your bio that there is an ongoing issue that royalties might not be getting paid to people. How are you kind of developing a way for people to get paid, and is this going to be? Do you see this going forward? So this needs to be an issue that's tackled now.
It is. It's actually an issue that's been around for a while, but because of COVID and because so many people have gone online and to live stream gigs rather than be able to do them in person, it's shone much more of a light on the issue that actually a lot of people are not getting paid for when they're actually creating the music that's being played in DJ sets. And that's something where the Association for Electronic Music and other organisations have really been looking into this. There's a campaign called Get Played, Get Paid, which we're working on at the moment. And the idea is really to be able to to use music recognition technology to track the tunes that are being played in each of the sets, and then match those with the metadata that says, well, who wrote the tune and who needs to be paid for it. And then to be able to deliver that combined bit of information to the right society so that they can actually pay through to the creators. Because a lot of people don't realise that when a DJ is playing a set, technically you need to have clearances for all of the music that DJ is playing. A lot of people don't realise that. A lot of people don't realise that that's when they're watching a live stream and suddenly a piece of music will cut out. It's because that's been blocked because it hasn't been licensed correctly. That could be the platform doesn't have the right license, or it could be that the particular rights holder, the record label or publisher, has put a block on it, not whitelisted it. There are lots of reasons why things might drop out, which isn't a great user experience, obviously. So yeah, we're hoping that actually if there's one positive thing that comes out of COVID, and out of the proliferation of live streams, it's getting it towards the stage where not only can the DJs and performers get paid for what they're doing, but also the people that have actually created the music that goes into those sets as well.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I mean, because the technology is kind of there from a DJ side. I'm pretty sure Pioneer already do something where you can stream live the track information, so it's not like it's not available. It's just seems like it's just not being done.
The technology's there. It's part of the problem is not necessarily with that end of it, but with the fact that some of the platforms where the live streams are being broadcast, they don't have the licenses in place to be able to actually track, identify and pay through the right royalties. And then some of the collection societies that are responsible for also being able to track and pay through the performance and broadcast royalties don't have licenses that cover live streaming. So, you know, there are multiple different angles to this problem that we're trying to fix at the moment, but the will is definitely there. The technology is also there. We just need the right agreements, the right licensing in place, and for everyone to have a better understanding of how it works to make sure that everyone's getting due what they should be getting.
Yeah. Well, that's the message that can go out to everyone. I know we've sort of been talking about like things returning to kind of like the way they were, but I mean, is there any points in the industry you'd like to see change and kind of create a healthier scene and industry for everyone? I mean, anyone can chime in on this one.
One of the things that this is probably me as a dance sort of raver, punter, dance music fan, is that I think with some festivals and venues, it would be good to see a bit more kind of collaboration and a bit less of the cutthroat in terms of how they go about booking artists or precluding artists from being able to then book onto other nights and other festivals as well. That's something that has been a bit of a bugbear. And really, I think more collaboration and understanding of who your audience is and making sure that you're doing the best thing that you can for the fans and the ticket holders and the ticket buyers would be a really beneficial move. And actually, this is probably going to sound very weird in a COVID context, but I think to kind of redress the balance of some venues that were really overselling before, and I know that obviously tickets need to be sold and there needs to be a certain amount of revenue coming into the venues, but there are some venues, I won't name any names, where they've got such a reputation for overselling, not Printworks, by the way, just making that really clear. But there are some others that have such a reputation for overselling that it creates an environment where you can't move. And if you can't move, you can't dance. And if I'm going to pay money to go to a club night, the one thing that I want to do is dance. And have enough space and be able to move around properly, be able to get a drink from the bar without having to wait for half an hour, all of those sorts of things. So maybe the consumer experience side, that there'll be a little bit of a readjustment around that so that it works well for the consumer as well as working for the venues and the promoters.
Yeah.
I guess that'd be whether the fees will come down, whether fees have come down, because that's always been a problem, and it's always that promoters are trying to max their top end. And by ramming more people in there, I mean, Christ, we used to do that at terminals all the time, you know.
I know, I remember it well.
we used to yeah. Can we get any more in? Yeah, pack them in, like
pack them in, sweat dripping off the ceiling. Yeah,
1,200 capacity club that had 2,500 people in it. It's ridiculous, you know.
Madness.
But, I think that's an interesting point. I think, like, for example, we have had shows, and I think one thing again we're very lucky to have is that because we do such I guess data collection in terms of our audience, so like the way our shows are run, like we are very in tune with just that customer profile, and so we know that certain like shows are like going to be super like lively and people are going to be like super busy, and we try to for that to be reflected in perhaps maybe the amount of tickets that we sell, or how we, because we have 2 rooms, how we then do the lineup, so that we know, if you know that room 1's going to be really busy, maybe let's put something really good in room 2, so that there's a good flow of people around the space. And I think I appreciate that we don't run the same way that perhaps other venues might run, but I definitely feel like being able to have that kind of data around your shows, and just knowing that a Solid Grease show is like this, but a Glitterbox show is going to be like that. Having that information then helps you to really take notice of what that customer experience is like, and so we're definitely very mindful of that, and try to allow that to reflect how we run the nights in general.
The other thing I thought about is whether nights actually then cater for the live stream aspect as well, where there's a partial part of their audience is still at home because they just don't want to go to a nightclub because there's a fear of contracting a virus, you know. Definitely myself, like I've got more things to lose than that. Like I've got kids and I've got family and I've got, you know, I can't be myself getting ill, so I can't myself go to a club until I know there's a way for me not to be, you know, not to get really sick, for instance, you know. So therefore there's still a live stream aspect there, that I would still watch a stream and have a party at home and be involved in that party. So therefore you're, you know, and even probably even pay to be part of an environment that's part of a party that I would like to go to, but just don't want to be in a sweaty place where viruses breed.
It's such a big opportunity. You're absolutely right there, to have live streaming as part of the experience now. And I think that's something that a lot of venues and promoters will be looking at, because the last few months have realized that you can get an audience. You can get an audience that will pay a certain amount to be part of it, if what you're offering them is interesting enough, production values or engagement, or just them feeling like they're actually part of the show. And I think it, you know, as when capacities are still kind of compromised throughout this COVID period, adding a live streaming element to it and doing it cleverly is going to be very important for balancing the books. It's also a great way of reaching people that are in the far-flung parts of the world that physically can't get to your club. You know, if you're offering something good, it can be global, and then you're reaching a whole other audience and potentially getting them, even if they're only paying £3 or £5 to join a live stream, that's still extra money that you wouldn't have got. So there's clever ways of looking at it that way.
Yeah, 100%. Like joining something that's locked, that's not just a Facebook thing that everyone can watch, but joining actually you know, a paid lockdown environment where it's you and that group of people that's in there, and even some interaction with the dance floor. If you can get really clever, you know, then that'd be quite cool, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think even just like, so obviously the live streams we've been watching now, obviously just kind of the DJ, but being able to see people like on the dance floor, like enjoying themselves, I think people would like engage and like that a lot more.
Definitely.
I think, you know, people are at home. You've seen people have like mini parties with their like social bubbles. You know, they're creating their own dance floor space. So, you know, it without actually being at the club, they're doing exactly the same as what they would have done there. So I guess that does kind of reach some sort of halfway point where the club's still getting money, even though they're having reduced capacity, and they're still putting on a night. So that's quite a nice halfway bridge the gap before you can return to that capacity.
The other reverse of that is if the artist is supposed to go to a place and they can't because that place is in a local lockdown. How could you then stream that artist still to that? Obviously they're locked into that area, but you could still stream to that area and you could still be part of that event, even if it's, you know, maybe it's a less fee because you're not, the artist is not there, but can you make it stream, you know, just to that one venue?
I mean, that's a great point, because how many times might it be logistically before where the flight's cancelled, the DJ can't get there, you know, oh, well, he could probably just stream it live still, and people are still going to enjoy that music. They're going to be at the club with the speakers, you know, you could put a cardboard cutout if you needed to, or just have someone stand there. They're still going to enjoy that music.
It might even make a less focused dance floor because you're not focusing at a DJ at one focal point. Yeah. You're just having a dance floor that's got the music in it with, you know, the artist. You know the artist is playing because you can essentially know that they're there, and that's, you can watch the stream somewhere. You know,
that's a great point. Yeah, even in my like 10,
it could be TVs all around the dance floor that you're streaming across all around the dance floor, and then you're looking wherever, you know.
Yeah, more to the dance. Yeah, when I started going out clubbing, it was like dance floor centric, and now it's more and more towards the front with the phone. So yeah, it's that'd be kind of cool to see a reverse in that. Courtney, I'm not sure if you were going to go back to Ibiza this summer, but is there anything you'd like to see progress in Ibiza, or any ideas you've had yourself to sort of progress the scene there, and you'd like to see change in the future?
Yeah, I was supposed to be going back there. Unfortunately not.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, I suppose probably what you were saying before, like I think Ibiza's a big thing on capacity. I feel like quite a lot of the clubs there obviously do overcapacitate things, which doesn't make it always like an enjoyable experience in that kind of sense. I don't really know about Ibiza, no.
it's kind of have the time, nice to have this time to reflect on things.
Yeah.
Hopefully these ideas can, I guess a lot of people are feeling the same, so these can be injected going forward.
Yeah,
I guess with an Ibiza thing. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna add on to that point. Obviously, like Ibiza is mainly known for like such like high capacities and that. So obviously after this, something is gonna have to change, like no matter what over there, really.
Yeah.
Go on, Grahame.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's a smaller island, and if you could have multiple events where a selection of the certain, like a lineup played four or five events in one evening, just 4 or 5 different groups of people that have all paid to be part of, to watch that lineup, and they all just move around. Instead of going to one big event, you went to 5. That artist played 5 smaller events across one evening.
Yeah.
That would then obviously cover booking fees. It would cover, artists playing, but it would also cover the fact that you've got smaller venues.
Yeah. Be a lot more open air places as well.
Yeah,
would be good, because obviously there are a few open air. Obviously, you got Ushuaia and that, but yeah, maybe some more open air places out there.
Yeah, I guess like festivals in the UK and everywhere has kind of just had a meteoric rise over the past 10 years. It's a massive open air stuff, and it's kind of been, you can see it adapted now because of necessity, I guess. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool to see more of that.
Be nice to lose some of those bigger ones as well in the UK. It'd be nice to if some of them just wasn't viable, and then we lost a few of those awfully big festivals, and we got more smaller, boutique intimate festivals, because that's what all you could have. That'd be absolutely lovely.
Why? Actually, that's interesting.
like you go to a massive festival and it's just like there's just too, like sometimes you get there and it's just like you feel again there's too many people,
Okay.
it's too many,
yeah,
and it's just not as intimate, and it's not as you're not as close, and you're miles away from whoever you're trying to see. If those ones weren't financially viable, then
the thing that's annoying at a festival, I think, is when there's like 2 artists clashing and you want to go to like both of them. So it's like things like that. So if there was like smaller ones, then you could always like kind of go see who you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they'd be able to cater for that. They know who's going to be the most popular on each of these lineups. So I guess they could cater to the lineup by demand, so there's not so many clashes. I guess in recent years, we've seen a lot of movements, Me Too, BLM, and we've seen some companies adapt to change and bring in change. Do you think it's important for these industry leaders to take this on board, considering we're talking about what the future holds for the industry? Do you think they should be taking the initiative and leading these and joining in with these campaigns rather than be so reactionary?
I would say that it's important to, I guess, note that a lot of, if you think about influence in areas, a lot of it's kind of like top down kind of mentality. And so you look to the people in spaces that have influence in certain areas to, I guess, learn about different things. And I think that on in a general sense, regardless of, not necessarily tied to like a social movement of any type. So I definitely think it's important that when you are in a culture, and I'm on this panel today, and I'm always very mindful that I'm in the electronic music industry as an operator, right? So like I operate a venue that is primarily embedded in electronic music culture, but I am not of the culture, because it's not like I didn't grow up going to electronic raves or what have you. And so I'm always very mindful of how I speak about that space, because I almost sometimes feel that it's not my space to over impose certain opinions to some degree. What I do think is that we have such an influence over so many different people in the communities in which we are occupying. And I think it's important that we are always creating spaces where people feel like they can come and congregate and do so in a way that isn't going to be challenged, isn't going to, they're not going to be just made to feel a certain type of way. And I think that, you know, of like women in spaces, I think things like sexual harassment and such in venues, at festivals and what have you, is such a big situation that definitely needs to be addressed. And so thinking about how venues or just people in general can kind of work around you know, creating awareness around that, but also holding people accountable, and what programs and things we can put in our spaces that we do occupy to lessen that as a problem. And then down to things like, you know, race and, you know, representation in those spaces too. I think it's important that everybody is doing their part. And so, like, for example, myself, I've worked in events as a sort of production operations type of person for a very long time, and I very rarely see other Black women, you know, at a certain level working in, you know, bigger venues, bigger tours and what have you. So for me, I'm always very mindful of how important representation is, because if you never see it, you don't really know, you never know that you could be it, right? So you know, I'm very mindful of that, and I don't take that that visibility that I have lightly, because I do think it's important. But I do feel like we all have a part to play in just creating spaces that are safe for people to just come and enjoy the culture that we are facilitating. Because when you do, it's just so much fun, and it can always be happen. You know, we have nights like if you've gone to a glitterbox night, you know, that is like just an assortment of just people, and it's the most fun night you'll ever have. And it's fun because everyone is just accepting of the people that they are dancing with, you know, like no one cares, you know, what their gender is, no one cares where they come from. Like that's not what we're here for. We're here to have a good time. And I think that for me is such a North Star. That's something that we should always be striving for, to create those spaces and those events and those moments that people can just come and enjoy themselves and just really enjoy the culture in which we're building.
That's amazing.
That's
Amazing you picked up on
point.
the sorry, Karen.
No, I was just going to say that you know, while you were talking there, I was thinking about a shift in how people that are going to clubs and festivals get treated, and the way in which we can engender more of that kind of glitterbox sort of vibe, where everyone's accepting of everyone else, everyone's there just to have a good time, to respect each other and get on with each other, and there not to be any kind of aggravation. What you do find in, you know, what I've found, certainly in my experience in clubs and festivals, is that sometimes the security will be there so focused on just almost making you feel like you're a troublemaker potentially, or that you're dealing drugs. What would be really lovely is if they were there more to make sure that nobody was being harassed. So if there were women being harassed by a bloke, the women knew that they could go to the security, talk about it, be taken seriously, and that person would be ejected. I think if there's more of a focus on that, making sure that whatever ethnic minority you may be, what, you know, if you're LGBTQ, that anyone that's harassing you or giving you a hard time, that's going to be taken more seriously than somebody thinking, oh, are they what are they pulling out of their pocket right now? Because that does have an impact on how people feel within club spaces. And friends of mine, especially women that I know that have come clubbing with me, have found that over presence of security really quite intimidating. And it has ruined their night when they just want to go out and have a good time. They just want to go out and dance. But instead, they made to feel like they're being watched the whole time, but for all the wrong reasons. It's not for their own safety. It's in case they do something wrong. So if we have a shift in that kind of mentality, and promoters and venues really take it seriously and have a, you know, we've got a zero tolerance policy about drugs. Let's have a zero tolerance policy about harassment of any kind towards anybody in that venue, and nip it in the bud. It's been a long time coming, but you know, we need to really focus on that now, I think.
Yeah, I think you raised a great point there about, like, people want to go out, you know, people work hard in the week. They want to go out and enjoy themselves and feel safe. Like whoever it is, you know, they should be able to go and enjoy themselves and feel safe. It seems almost that it's like, I know it's obviously a big societal thing as well, but kind of the way electronic music, particularly in the UK, I feel like it's viewed in a sort of, it's wrong. And then, you know, it like you say, that stems down to those bouncers and the security. They're looking at everyone like they've done something wrong. And then, the point is lost about keeping everyone safe in that environment.
Do you know what I've got very quickly? I'll give you one brilliant example of exactly that. So on a Friday night, I went to go to a hospitality drum and bass event, and at that event, the security, you had to show photo ID. It had to be in date photo ID. There were all the kind of machines where you had to have your photograph taken. You didn't know where it went afterwards, and they were turning loads of people away. And we didn't end up being allowed in because somebody didn't have the right photo ID with them, and it was a real palaver. And it was it wasn't it wasn't the night's fault. It was the council and the security around there. The following day, I was going to a classical concert, same person, exactly the same person. And you go to the festival hall and you have your ticket, you walk right in. There's no searches, there's no checks, there's no making you feel like you're some kind of criminal before you've even gone in. And that's the difference in how people are viewed if they're a punter of electronic music, potentially, versus other types of music. There's a real disparity, and it's an absolute nonsense. At the end of the day, music is music, and nobody should be treated as if they're potentially going to do something wrong because they like a particular genre. So that's something else that needs to change in terms of the perception that we've got around our industry.
I definitely agree with you there. But from an operator's point of view, I always feel like you're almost damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because 100% I completely agree that it's so when you go into a venue and there's like shitloads of like security everywhere, excuse my language, like I completely know just that feeling of just you almost feel guilty and you've not even done anything at all, right? But then there's also there are the odd chances that things do happen, and so when you do have those instances when there's big ruckus happens, or whether there's a dodgy drug that's going around, and we've had loads of different like terrible like medicals and what have you, if we've not then done those processes of like doing those searches of there being a heavy presence, we then have our license in question because they're like, well, why wasn't your search thorough enough and what have you. So it's such a difficult difficult sort of like catch 22, because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, really. And I'm always questioning how we change that. How do we just find this like sweet spot where people can come and we can do the things that we need to do in order for them to be safe without them feeling like they're being overly policed, because ultimately all we really want for you guys to do is to come and like have a good time, right? So that's definitely those are things that I'm always kind of thinking about in terms of like, how do we just make this an easier process for everybody?
And it must be really difficult because you're bound by the constraints of the law and what the government or the system is sort of pushing on your nightlife, and yeah, I guess safety is going to be the first key, isn't it? Like, you don't want to go somewhere and literally be scared for your life. That can't be good at all. But it's great though, Fiona, that you take these things on board and you inject these into what you do. So it's great to hear your voice on that. I did have one. We had one question come in. Well, we had a couple, but I probably only got time for one. They mentioned in a nightclub scenario regarding like royalties, would the process of getting paid kind of go to producers from PRS or something like that, from DJ sets?
From DJ sets, it should go. Yes, it basically what gets played in the sets should get reported through to the PRS and similar collection societies globally, and then that should be paying through to the producers. The problem being that a lot of the venues don't either have the music recognition technology in place. Sometimes they just rely on the DJ writing a set list down, which may or may not be accurately what they actually played. Some of them don't insist on that at all. So there's massive gaps in what actually gets performed and then fed through to those collection societies and the royalties that then get paid back. So you can't assume that the people who have actually created the music that's being played out have been paid for that ultimately. And that's the thing that we're trying to fix at the moment.
Great, thank you. I think someone also mentioned that a lot of dance events are self-policed as people involved realise the inclusive nature, as that's where it's all came from. I guess that's to a point, but like Fiona says, things could go bad. So you really need to keep people safe. I guess on a smaller level that might work, but at bigger venues, I guess, inclusive nature means anyone can come. So really there could be problems. So I guess it would have to be policed. I don't know.
It's a lovely idea in theory, the self-policing, but if you go to a night and it happens to be a genre where it's largely male and you're female, you can't really rely on the men to self-police if you're being harassed by another man. They may not notice it, they may not care, it's not their mate, whatever else. So there's only so far the self-policing can go, I think.
I think we've kind of come into the end here. Thank you all for sharing. You've got so much experience and it's been really interesting to hear your views. It's a panel I've been really looking forward to as well, because you're involved in so many different aspects of the music industry and it turning and what's involved for the future. So I think we kind of ended positively, hopefully. But definitely there's a lot of discussion about positivity and things continuing and things moving on. So thank you so much. Thank you, Silvia, Courtney, Fiona and Grahame. You've been absolutely brilliant and it's been a pleasure having you on. To everyone watching, thank you as well. If you would like to donate still, please do so. The link's in the description. We're supporting Women in Music, BLMUK, Mind and Help Musicians, and they're all brilliant charities and they're doing a lot to support people, especially at this time. But thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone. It's so nice of you to join me. Thank you. I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.